Thank you. Good evening, Your Honor. May the plaintiff make appearances before the court?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Monique Ottawa, and along with my co-counsel, Good evening, Your Honor. And Michaela Taylor.
Good evening, Your Honor.
We'll be representing the plaintiff, Andy Park, in today's case.
Good evening, Your Honor.
Your Honor, before we begin with some inquiries about your preferences for today's proceedings, would you like us to move freely about the courtroom, or would you have to ask permission to do so?
Ask permission to approach the bench, the jury, and oppose the witnesses.
Yes, Your Honor. And if an objection is sustained, do we have to move to strike, or can we assume that it's been stricken?
Move to strike.
Your Honor, and we also assume that all objection arguments are heard outside the ears of the jury.
Yes.
And that the plaintiff is ready to proceed.
Any pretrial matters for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. First, I'd like to make appearances before the court.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Adelsberger, and together with my co-counsels Lauren Jennings
Good evening, Your Honor.
and Peter Checkanover. We represent the defendant in today's case, Ms. Hayden Durant. This time, I'd also like to invoke Rule 615, which calls for the constructive sequestration of all material witnesses, save party representatives. The defense has no party representative.
Does the plaintiff have a party representative in court?
Yes, Your Honor. That will be Mr. Andy Park.
Okay.
We'd also like to invoke Rule 603, which states that all witnesses have previously been sworn in prior to their testimony.
Okay.
And with that, the defense is, well, one more pretrial matter, Your Honor. In the pretrial order, stipulation 2, Judge Jackson's already ruled that the post-shooting statement of Jesse Duran, all objections have been waived to that. We'd like to go ahead and enter that into evidence.
Okay.
May I approach and retrieve?
Yes.
And now the defense is ready to proceed.
All right. Plaintiff, opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor. Excuse me, someone timekeeping? May I proceed? Members of the jury? This is Andy Park. And he knows exactly where his 11-year-old daughter is right now. He knew where she was yesterday. And he knows exactly where she'll be tomorrow. And that's because Sydney doesn't go to school, or to soccer games, or on play dates. Sydney doesn't go anywhere anymore. She's in the Sweet Hills graveyard. She's the third stone on the left, right in the shade of the willow tree. Members of the jury, we are gathered here today to hold her killer responsible. Because on August 18th, 2010, Sydney was shot and killed by her best friend, Jesse Duran. It's August 18th, and Jesse and Sydney are home alone at the Park House. And Jesse, well, she decides that today is the day that she's going to get her hands on the Park's gun. She's been obsessed with guns for years. So she tricks Sydney into opening up the Park safe. And she gets the gun out. And then Jessie does the unthinkable. Just like she's done hundreds, if not thousands of times before in her video game, she picks up that gun, she aims it, and she fires it, and she kills with it. And just like that, Sydney Park Now Jessie, she was only 11 years old when she shot Sydney. How could someone so young do something so violent? Dr. Emerson Couples will take that stand today. He'll explain it to you. He'll tell you something shocking. He'll tell you that not only is it possible for a child as young as Jessie to be a psychopath, but that Jessie is a psychopath. That Jessie lacks concern for the pain of others. Jessie lacks empathy. This may sound shocking to you sitting here in this courtroom. Would it be so surprising to those who actually knew Jessie? You'll hear from Terry Chapin, a neighbor who was home on the morning of the shooting. He'll tell you that he heard the gun go off, that he rushed to the Parks house, knowing Sydney was home, wanting to help, wanting to save her, wanting to do anything. Only to find Sydney already on the floor, dead. Well, Jessie walked around, talked on her phone, calm as can be, while Sydney lay on the floor. So why are we here today? We're here to hold Jessie responsible. And to do that, the Parks have filed a claim of intentional shooting against Jessie's parent, Hayden Duran. And that may sound strange to you, that a parent can be automatically held responsible for their child's actions. But that's called vicarious liability. And that's the law here in Midlands. And vicarious liability demands that if you believe that it was more likely than not, a preponderance of the evidence, that Jessie intentionally shot Sydney, then you must find Hayden liable. Jessie's violence may have started out as part of a video game. But what happened on August 18th was no game. The bullet that shattered Sydney's skull, that was real. The gun that Jessie picked up and held in her hand, that was real. And the pain that Andy Park feels each and every minute of every single day, that's real. It's your job to make sure that the consequences are real. Find Hayden liable. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, Ms. Alwa, members of the jury. Today's case is about a friendship and a game between friends. Sydney Park and Jessie Duran were two 11-year-old girls growing up in the small town Fairfield, Midlands together. They attended the same school together. They were best friends. Sydney and her two parents, Andy and Lee Park, lived right next door to the Duran family. Both families attended the same church on Sunday, and their daughters were involved in the local Girl Scout troop together. Jessie and Sydney were like sisters, always together, laughing and playing. It's August 18th, 2010. Jessie's summer camp has been canceled for the day. Her mother, Hayden, plans to have her stay with the Park family for the day. Jessie and Hayden arrive at the Park's home and learn that the babysitter that is normally there supervising the kids during the day is out of town. At this point, Andy Park and Hayden Duran come to a decision. They decide to leave the kids home alone for only a few hours. In those few hours, Jesse and Sydney would find the combination to the Parks gun safe. They would open this safe and retrieve a gun. And with this gun, they would play a game. A game that would result in the tragic loss of Sydney Park's life. Today's case is a civil trial, in which the plaintiff is bringing a claim of intentional shooting. Now, to prove intentional shooting, they must show that Jesse intended to cause harm on that morning and that Jesse intended to shoot Sydney. Intent means that when one performs an action, that they understand the consequences of that action. I was listening to Ms. Elwah's opening. She only mentioned intent once. And they must prove that Jesse intended to cause harm and intended to shoot Sydney by a preponderance of the evidence. Preponderance of the evidence means that they must prove each and every element of intentional shooting by the greater weight of the evidence. It means the most convincing force and effect of the entirety of the evidence in today's case. This burden will never shift and will never lessen. It will remain with the plaintiff for the duration of this trial. During this trial, we will learn that on that morning, it was just a game between friends. Jessie Duran will bravely take that stand. She will walk you through the game she played with Sydney on that morning. And how she looked inside the cylinder of the Parks gun, saw no bullets. How she never meant to hurt nor harm Sydney Park. Then we'll call Officer Williams, the Midland State Police Department. Officer Williams will explain to you the investigation he did, what he found out about what happened on that morning, and how his investigation proves Jesse's account of that morning is accurate. And lastly, we'll call Ash DeRosa, an expert in firearm safety. Mr. DeRosa will explain to you what an accidental discharge of a firearm is, and that children that are anywhere from 10 to 14 years old, the same age group that Jessie Duran was in on August 18, 2010, are the most prone to accidentally firing a firearm. What happened to Sydney Park is tragic. Midlands lost a bright star in their community on that day. But nothing in today's proceedings can bring Sydney back. As a member of the jury, it's your responsibility to look past the emotion, to see the facts. At the end of this trial, my co-counsel, Mr. Adelsberger, will come before you. He will explain to you what has been shown through the facts in today's case. It will be clear that the only right verdict is a verdict of not liable.
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Andy Park to the stand. May I proceed?
Yes.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record?
Hello, my name is Andy Park, P-A-R-K.
What do you do for work, Mr. Park?
I'm retired from the military. It was dangerous, and I thought it was time to do something closer to home and spend time with my family. I had a stunning wife and a great daughter. And, I loved them so much. I just wanted to spend time with them.
Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
I don't even know how to answer that now. I used to consider myself a father, and good one at that, but now I don't know.
Can you tell us a bit about your daughter?
Sydney was such a loving girl, shy at times too, and I loved her so much. Growing up, she was honestly my little soldier in training.
You mentioned Sydney was shy. Did she have many friends?
No, she really didn't have many. Just one, Jessie Duran.
Who is Jessie Duran?
Jessie was the girl that lived next door. My daughter called her her best friend.
Could you tell us a little bit about Jessie and Sydney's relationship?
Sydney was a nice girl, and Jessie would boss around sometimes. I overlooked it, the kids being kids, but now I wish I hadn't.
You mentioned Jessie would boss Sydney around. Could you elaborate on that?
Like I said, Sydney was a nice girl, and often too nice sometimes. I bet she wouldn't have been nearly as interested, let alone nearly as involved in these violent video games if it wasn't for Jessie's personality and Sydney's accepting behavior.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
My client has spent an ample amount of time with his daughter and enough time to make a rationally based perception as to what his daughter would have been involved or would not have been involved in if it were not for influence of her friends.
Your Honor, if I may be heard, he cannot speak to Sydney or Jessie's mindset, especially whether or not Jessie influenced Sydney to act a particular way.
Sustained. Go back to lay foundation if need be to show how he could have done this.
Yes, Your Honor. Was there ever any times when Jessie and Sydney would be over at your house playing together?
Yes, it happened often.
And when they were at your house, what types of activities would they be doing?
They would play video games and run around and do kid things like that.
Did you have any rules regarding the types of video games Sydney was allowed to play?
Yes, our rules were strict. Sydney was only allowed to play video games rated E for everyone. I couldn't imagine her experiencing what I had to in the military, be it fictional or real.
So if you didn't want Sydney playing Jessie's violent video games, what did you do to stop it?
I simply didn't allow Jessie to bring her violent video games over to my house in an attempt to play with my daughter.
Was there ever a time when Jessie disobeyed your rules and brought the violent video games over anyway?
Yes, it happened every now and then.
Objection, Your Honor. If I may be heard, co-counsel or opposing counsel is confusing the issues at hand. If you refer to the available case law on page 2, Wyatt v. Alley, when a plaintiff is pursuing an intentional shooting, they cannot introduce prior bad acts. This has no probative value and substantially dangerous, confusing issues under Goodland's rules of evidence. Now, introducing Jessie bringing bad video games and throwing a tantrum would be prejudicing the jury.
Response?
Your Honor, we never mentioned Jessie throwing any tantrums. We are merely mentioning this because, as we will hear from Dr. Couples' testimony later in the case, Jessie disobeying Mr. Park's rules and bringing the violent video games over anyway goes to show defiance of authority, which is an element of psychopathy. And it is our case theory today that psychopathy is the reason of Jessie's willful misconduct.
Do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor. Introducing Jessie disobeying orders would be an instance of a bad act. Therefore, it has no probative value and should not be allowed in court tonight.
Mr. Park, to repeat my question, was there ever a time when Jessie disobeyed your rules and brought the violent video games over anyway?
Yes, and it happened every now and then. Kids will be kids, but I remember one time specifically.
Could you elaborate on that one time?
Sure. One morning when I woke up, I noticed that Jessie had brought a violent video game over to my house in an attempt to play with my daughter. And I simply locked it away in my nightstand in an attempt to give it to Hayden Duran the next morning.
What happened when you took the video game away and locked it in your nightstand?
Jessie, she appeared to be very upset. She threw a fit in front of me, and I was honestly surprised just how attached she was to these realistically violent video games. And
going through your drawers?
You know, I asked her why she would do such a thing, and she was hesitant in her response, and she appeared to be conflicted in some way, so I didn't want to upset her. She told me that Jesse talked her into it, and I mean, what do? You go against your dad's rules or be a bad friend?
Mr. Park, if you were so concerned about Jesse's influence on Sydney, why did you stop their playdates?
Honestly, I mean, looking back, I should have. It's just, like I said, Sydney was really shy, and she didn't have many friends. Losing Jessie at that age would have crushed her, and no dad wants to see her daughter go through that, let alone be the cause of it. You know, I had no idea to find a way to get a gun.
Let's back up for a minute. What gun are you referring to?
A few years ago, my house had been broken into, and I wanted to purchase a gun and buy a safe in order to protect my family if it happened again. I love them so much.
Where did you keep this gun, Mr. Park?
The gun was kept locked in the safe in my bedroom.
Where did you keep the combination to the safe?
The combination was kept written down on a file and kept in a filing drawer in a filing cabinet in my office. It was one of a dozen files in there.
Mr. Park, it's time to talk about the events that took place on August 18th, 2010. If you need to take a break, just let me know, okay?
All right.
Let's go through this slowly. How did that morning start?
I remember waking up and thinking how beautiful of a morning it was, and I was in the process of making Sydney's favorite breakfast and putting the chocolate chips on her pancakes in a smiley face when I got a call from the babysitter canceling.
What did you do when the babysitter called and canceled that morning?
Just because the babysitter canceled doesn't mean work did. So I waited for Hayden to arrive with Jessie, and we both talked it over. We didn't think it would have been such a bad idea to leave them home.
I understand, Mr. Parker. What happened when you left for work that morning?
45 minutes. 45 minutes after I left, I get a call telling me to come back. You know, 45 minutes, and my whole life was taken from me.
Did you head home after receiving that phone call?
Of course.
What happened when you got to your home?
I remember seeing ambulances and police cars, hearing sirens. I was led into my own home by a police officer.
What happened when you were led into your home that morning?
That's when I saw Sydney's body. You know, Sydney's body was there, but Sydney was gone.
Mr. Park, I need you to tell the jury exactly what you saw.
When I walked in, I noticed the body on the ground. I didn't know who it was at first. That's when I saw her pink sparkly flip-flops, and I knew it was Sydney because I bought those for her the Christmas before, and I noticed the sheet over her soaked through with blood, and that's when I lost it. I felt like my life had been taken too.
Who was the only person left in the house that morning with Sydney when you left for work?
It was just Jessie. When I left for work, it was just Jessie and Sydney.
Thank you, Mr. Park. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Your Honor. Proceed. Now, Mr. Park, I understand this can be extremely difficult. If anytime you need to take a break, please just let me know, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you were very close with the Durans.
Yes, they live next door to me, so we were close as any neighbors would be.
And your Sydney often played with Jessie Duran.
Yes, like I said, Sydney was a shy girl, and she didn't have many friends. So being that Jessie lived next door was pretty convenient for her to play with her.
And as you mentioned earlier, they often played video games together.
Well, yes, like kids of that age usually do. They enjoy playing video games and things of that nature.
But you disagreed with some of the games that Jessie wanted to play.
Yes, I had rules in my house regarding the games that took it away. I locked it in my nightstand and just hoping to give it to Hayden the next morning.
And you also mentioned that Jesse threw a fit.
Well, yes, Jesse appeared to be very upset.
But Jesse didn't lash out at you.
Well, no, she didn't lash out, but I could tell she was upset.
Now, the following day, you found Sydney, your daughter, going through an office drawer looking for that game.
Unfortunately.
And when you found her, Jesse Duran wasn't with her, was he?
No, Jesse Duran was not there when I caught my daughter going through it.
And when you did find her going through it, she told you she knew this was where you kept all your important stuff.
Well, when I caught her going through it, she had mentioned to me that Jesse talked her into it. Like I said, I didn't want to be hard on her at the time.
But to bring you back to my question, she said that this is where you kept all your important stuff.
Well, yes, like she was a bright girl. She knew that important things were generally filed.
And this drawer, it contained the combination to your gun safe.
Yes, there was a file in that filing cabinet, and there was one of a dozen in there. It did contain the combination.
And just to clarify for the jury, Jesse was not there when you reprimanded Sydney.
No, I don't know where Jessie was, but she wasn't there.
Now, I'd like to move to August 17th, the day before the incident. Sydney pulled you aside on that day, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
And she questioned you about the location of your gun.
Yes.
And she even indicated that your gun was in your bedroom.
Well, she knew the safe was in there, so I'm sure she guessed.
Now, during all of this, Jesse Duran was in the other room.
Well, I think so. I'm not sure exactly where Jessie was at the time. I wasn't with her.
But you don't know if Jesse heard any of your conversation.
No, I'm not sure if she did. She definitely could have.
But you don't know if she did.
Not 100% sure, no.
Now, Jessie, she came back to your house on August 18th.
Yes.
And on this morning, your babysitter, Danny Brooks, called out sick.
Yes, that morning the babysitter called and canceled, unfortunately. And like I said, I waited for Hayden to arrive. And, he didn't have any other forms of babysitting or watching to offer for the kids, so we were forced to leave them home alone.
And you left them home alone because you both had to go to work that day.
Yes, just because the babysitter canceled doesn't mean work did.
So you would agree that you went to work that morning.
Yes, and not for long though.
Mr. Park, you weren't home when your gun was discharged.
No, I wasn't.
And because of this, you don't know how the children got into your gun safe.
I'm not 100% sure how it happened. No, like I said, I was at work for 45 minutes. Then I came home.
You don't know who opened your gun safe.
I wasn't there, so I don't know.
You don't know how your gun was loaded that day.
No, like I said, I wasn't there at the time my daughter was shot.
And you don't know what they had been doing.
No, like I said, I wasn't there when my daughter was shot.
Most importantly, Mr. Park, you don't know why your gun was discharged on August 18th.
No, but I wish I did.
Thank you, Mr. Park. I have nothing further. Redirect?
No, Your Honor, we just asked that this witness be allowed to step down.
Second witness.
The plaintiff calls Terry Chapin to the stand. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Thor Chapin. C-H-A-P-I-N. Chapin.
Thank you, Mr. Chapin. Where are you from?
I grew up outside Belfast, Ireland.
What brings you here to America?
I came to the United States to open up my own motivational speaking dojo. It's quite successful. I have billboards up around town. With a little bit of whiskey and wisdom, you can find your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
That sounds lovely. But I actually talked to you about why you're here today. Do you know who Cindy Park is?
She's the wee lass who used to live next door to me.
Were you close with the Park family?
Not particularly. The only time I'd see them was when I had to go next door to borrow a potato, or when I'd see Sydney Park playing in the yard.
Mr. Chapin, when you see Cindy Park playing in the yard, would she be alone or would she often have someone else with her?
She was usually playing around with Jesse the Round lad from class from down the street.
And when you would see Jesse and Cindy playing around together, what exactly would they be doing?
They'd be running around, chasing each other, and Jesse'd be shooting her with the largest arsenal of imitation weapons known to the Western world.
Mr. Chapin, what exactly do you mean by imitation weapons?
Well, in the summer, he'd be chasing around with those water guns, and in the winter, he'd chase her around with those Nerf guns that shot the foam darts. They'll take your eye out.
I want to direct your attention to the morning of August 18th, 2010. Do you remember that morning?
That's not one I'm likely to forget.
Let's start at the beginning. Where were you?
I was at home in bed recuperating after the Irish loss the night before.
What woke you up?
I heard a loud bang. It sounded like it came from next door.
Next door being the Parks house? Okay, so what did you do when you heard a loud bang come from the Parks house?
I went next door to see if Sydney Park was okay. I knew she lived there, and I felt it was my civic duty.
What did you find when you went next door?
Well, I didn't want to just walk in the front door. I'm lucky. I'm not stupid. So I went to have a look in the window.
Can you tell the jury exactly what you saw when you looked through the window?
I saw Sydney Park laying on the ground. She wasn't moving. There was blood everywhere.
What did you do after seeing Cindy's body through the window?
I went inside to see if I could help her, but I was too late. She was gone.
Who else was in the room with Cindy's body?
After a little while, I saw Jesse Duran walk in from the other room. He was talking on his cell phone, calm as can be.
Okay. Did Jesse Duran say anything to you?
I told him Sydney was hurt. We needed to get her to a hospital. She just looked at me and said, "She's dead." I asked her if she was alright. She just said, "I'm alright."
So, Chapin, you described Jesse's demeanor as calm. Did that demeanor ever change?
After a while, he began to cry and act scared.
Did you see anything else in the room with Jesse and Cindy?
There was a gun lying on the ground about halfway between the table and Jesse.
Mr. Chapin, to your knowledge, was there anyone else in that house with Jesse and Cindy's body when you arrived?
No, it was just Jesse, Sydney, and the gun.
Thank you, Mr. Chapin. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Chapin, I'd like to talk about what you saw inside the Parks home that morning. You looked through the window and you saw Sidney Parks' body by the couch.
Right.
So you called the police and you told them what you saw.
Yes, I did.
Then you went inside the house to see if there was anything that you could do.
That's correct.
When you got inside the house, you said you saw Jesse Duran.
Right. He came in from the other room talking on a cell phone.
You said that Jesse Duran looked calm.
Hey, that's correct. She wasn't crying or anything. She was expressionless.
But that's not exactly true, isn't it?
It is. When Jessie came into the room talking on the cell phone, she was calm.
You thought that Jesse Duran looked shocked, didn't you?
Yeah, I did think that could have been an explanation for it.
After she came in looking shocked, you asked her what had happened.
That's correct.
And this is when Jesse's lips started to quiver.
Right.
Tears started to roll down her face.
Right.
She began to sob uncontrollably.
That's correct.
And then she eventually told you what happened that morning.
She told me that.
She said, "I didn't think this would happen.
Yeah, that's what she said.
We were just playing a game."
She said that.
Thank you, Mr. Chapin. No further questions.
No, Your Honor, may his witness be excused?
The people that are in the other round, it's 7:55, so.
Can I proceed, Your Honor?
Just give it a minute.
Take you called Dr. Yes, Your Honor, I don't now close or after Compass. Good evening. Could you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the record?
Hi, I'm Dr. Emerson Couples, spelled Couples.
What do you do for a living, Dr. Coppers?
Well, I'm a professor at the University of Iowa. Specifically, I teach child psychology and disruptive disorders and abnormal child behavior like psychopathy. I really love my job at the university. In fact, in 2012, I won the university's Professor of the Year award. It was the proudest moment of my life. To everyone except my wife, of course.
Congratulations, Dr. Coppers. Could you tell us a little bit more about your educational background?
Yes. Well, I received my master's degree and PhD in psychology from the University of Illinois. ILL? No alumni. So, okay, I wouldn't claim the school either with their football record. But in addition to that, I also went to the State University of New York in Buffalo, where I conducted postdoctoral studies.
And has any of your work ever been published or peer-reviewed?
Yes. When I managed to get time off from grading papers, I've managed to publish 3 books and had 25 peer-reviewed articles, 2 of which are specifically on psychopathy.
Is your testimony today based on sufficient facts and data?
Yes, I've reviewed the statements of Hayden Duran, Jesse Duran, Andy Park, Terry Chapin, as well as several exhibits in today's case, and I've interviewed 3 former teachers, 6 babysitters, and 11 of his classmates.
And is your testimony today also based on reliable scientific principles and methods?
Yes, I use the most current and accurate standards that are required by the American Psychology Association, of which I'm an elected fellow, which is quite prestigious.
And did you reliably apply these principles and methods?
explain if there's any sort of mental condition that would cause Jesse Duran to intentionally shoot Sydney Park.
And what do you think that condition could be?
Well, first and foremost, psychopathy.
And what is psychopathy?
Well, unlike the image the media portrays, which it says psychopaths are deranged or depressed individuals, that's not true. In fact, they're quite rational. The only difference between them and the average Joe is that they're without any sort of empathy or remorse.
Now, what test did you use to assess psychopathy in Jesse Duran?
I use the psychopathy assessment instrument titled Juvenile, or the PAGE test, as we tend to call it among the university. It was developed by Dr. Ethel Ortiz, who was a remarkable, groundbreaking psychologist. Great lady, met her a couple times.
Now, have you ever used this test to assess psychopathy in someone as young as Jesse Duran was on the day of the shooting?
Yes, the test, you can use it to identify factors and traits of psychopathy in children as young as 5 years old, and that's common standard practice.
Now, could you describe this test for us?
Yes, well, the test works off 10 commonly identified traits that are associated with child psychopathy, and it scores them from 0 to 2. A score of 12 is necessary to be clinically diagnosed a psychopath.
And what kind of traits are measured on this test?
Guiltless lying, defiance of authority, persistent aggression, indifference to the pain of others. There's more than one.
Which ones did Jesse exhibit, if any?
Okay, well, Jesse Duran exhibited 8 of the 10 traits that I found. The most pertinent to today's case was persistent aggression and defiance of authority.
Could you just explain defiance of authority for us?
Well, in the average child, you would expect to see some sort of behavioral response when they're given a command by authority figures, say teacher, babysitters, something like that. Children with psychopathy don't elicit that behavioral response. And it's common to see that, in fact, they'll do things in spite of what those authority figures want them to do.
And how did Jesse exhibit this?
Objection, Your Honor, to confusing the issue. May I be heard? In your prior ruling, you ruled that the Wyatt BLE case was not applicable to one prior bad act. In this instance, Dr. Couples is going to testify to numerous bad acts exhibited by Jesse Duran. This would confuse the issue in today's case because Jesse Duran is not on trial for past bad acts, but for what happened on the morning of August 18, 2010.
Does the plaintiff have a different interpretation of Wyatt BLE?
Your Honor, pursuant to Longstreet v. Floyd, Dr. Couples is an expert in psychology, and psychological conditions are admissible, even if they pertain directly to the case at hand.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
Longstreet v. Floyd applies to character evidence in giving a psychological opinion on the state of the defendant. And in this instance, I'm not objecting to character evidence, but to confusing the issue at hand. And thus, Longstreet v. Floyd is not applicable.
Plaintiff, why is this probative? The defense contends that under 403 this is more prejudicial than probative because of that holding in Wyatt v. Alley. Why would this not be probative? Why would this be probative?
The situations that Dr. Couples is testifying to were all used in his assessment of psychopathy of Jesse Duran, which includes persistent aggression and willful misconduct. It is our theory that the diagnosis of psychopathy goes to show intentional shooting, willful misconduct, and causation. So it is probative.
Overruled.
Dr. Couples, how did Jesse display persistent aggression? Or, excuse me, defiance of
told numerous times by his authority figures, parents and babysitters, not to interfere, mess, or play with guns, anything like that. And despite all this, he still managed to try to get in contact with the Park's firearms.
Now, you also mentioned persistent aggression. Could you explain that as well?
Yes, well, with children with psychopathy, they tend to be violent either towards children their own age, and that'd be like when they play, stuff like that, or they even fantasize about violence, which can be seen in the drawings or the actions that they do.
And how did Jesse display persistent aggression?
Well, Jessie Duran had an in-class assignment in which she had to draw a picture, and in this picture, that was what I used to come to my conclusions.
Dr. Couples, would you recognize this drawing if I showed it to you?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, permission to approach opposing counsel and the witness with what is in pre-marked as Exhibit 10.
Yes.
Dr. Couples, can you identify what I just handed you?
Yes, this is the Me and My Gun drawing by Jessie D. It was the in-class assignment I was referring to earlier.
And does this document look the same or substantially similar as the last time you saw it?
It looks the same.
And has it been changed or altered in any way?
No.
Your Honor, I now move into evidence what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 10 as Plaintiff A.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, to lack of authentication, may I be heard?
Yes.
For this drawing to be entered into evidence, we need to know the context in which it was drawn and what the assignment was given to Jessie Duran at the time. Both of those factors are unknown in today's case, and thus the document cannot be authenticated.
Why would those two factors be necessary in order to authenticate it?
Because without those two factors, the document could be used to prejudice the members of the jury. If we don't know what the assignment was given, Dr. Couples can say any reasonable thing he can come up with. We need to know on what context the drawing was drawn.
But does that affect authentication or make it more prejudicial?
I would say both, because to authenticate a document, we need to know how it was made and why it was made, and that makes it more prejudicial if that remains unknown.
I don't think it affects the authentication of the document. I think they've laid a foundation that it was by Jessie. However, on the prejudicial, do you have a response to that?
Your Honor, this document will go again to Dr. Couples' assessment of psychopathy in Jessie Duran, and its probative nature far outweighs any prejudice. Now, Dr. Couples, what does this drawing tell you about Jessie?
Well, in this drawing, Jessie Duran has depicted himself going about activities with a firearm. So he's got himself shooting cans, hunting animals, pointing at other kids. And then he says that he loves his gun. This again goes to show, remember he was told not to do anything, interfere, play with guns. He's got a drawing all about guns.
Now, Dr. Couples, according to the Page test, is Jessie Duran a psychopath?
Yes. Jessie Duran scored a 12, which means he's clinically diagnosed.
And was Jessie Duran also a psychopath on August 18th, 2010?
Yes, Jessie Duran is now and was then a psychopath.
Thank you, Dr. Couples. No further questions. Permission to publish to the jury?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Couples, in today's case, you use something called the Page scale in your analysis of Jessie Duran.
Yes, I did.
Part of this analysis looks at 10 characteristics and whether Jessie Duran exhibited these characteristics.
Right, the characteristics are commonly identified and agreed upon among the scientific community.
For a person to be found to be a psychopath with this scale, they needed to receive a score of anywhere from a 12 to a 20.
Yes, that's correct.
In today's case, you gave Jesse Duran the score of a 20.
No, I gave Jesse Duran the score of 12, which means he's clinically diagnosed as psychopath.
Yes, Dr. Couples, score of a 12. So if you made one mistake in today's case, then Jesse Duran is not a psychopath.
I guess so, but I'm again a leading psychologist at the University of Iowa, and I've been doing this job for a long time.
Dr. Couples, yes or no? You made one mistake in your analysis, then Jesse Duran is not a psychopath.
Yes, but I don't believe I made any mistakes.
Now, I want to talk about these characteristics you looked at and whether they were in Jesse Duran. One of them was the defiance of authority figure.
Yes.
Now, I was listening to what you just testified to Ms. Manis about this characteristic, and I want to get this clear. You listed the example that Jesse did not listen to authority figures about playing with guns.
Yes.
Dr. Couples, you remember creating a report in today's case.
Right.
And under the subtitle Defiance of Authority Figures, you never listed this example.
Well, I used multiple examples to come to my conclusion in today's case.
Dr. Couples, yes or no? You did not list this example in your report.
It's not specifically in your report.
And I want to talk about those examples you did list under Defiance of Authority Figures. One of those was that Jessie did not always want to tie her shoes when asked to.
Right. Again, every little thing goes up to combine to come to conclusions.
Dr. Couples, you would agree with me that it's reasonable that an 11-year-old girl doesn't always want to tie her shoes.
Well, in one instance, but when you add a culmination of everything, then it starts to paint a bigger picture.
So yes, it is reasonable that an 11-year-old girl doesn't always want to tie her shoes.
That's a very speculative answer.
Dr. Couples, yes or no? It is reasonable that an 11-year-old girl doesn't always want to tie her shoes.
I guess not.
So you're telling the members of the jury, an 11-year-old girl who is not fully developed as an adult cannot deny tying her shoes.
I'm sorry, can you explain your answer? Or question you're using here?
Yes, Dr. Couples. An 11-year-old girl who's considered a child is reasonably allowed to not tie her shoes when asked to, yes?
I guess so, but again, you're expected, the child is expected to comply to any orders given by authority figures.
So I want to move on to another characteristic you looked at, indifference to pain in others. When determining if a subject exhibits this trait, it would be important to talk to them.
No, not necessarily.
So Dr. Couples, in order to determine if one is indifferent to the pain of others, it is not important to talk to them?
Well, it does help in coming to conclusions, but you use the interviews of other people to form a more coherent picture.
In fact, one of the reasons you cited that Jessie was indifferent to the pain of others was the reaction she gave on August 18, 2010.
Right.
You would agree with me that Jessie was upset on that morning. She exhibited crying.
Yes.
I want to talk about the page scale in general. It's designed for subjects anywhere from 12 to 16 years old.
Children, yes.
So the scale is made for subjects that are 12 to 16 years old, yes?
Children, yes.
In this instance, Jessie Duran was 11 years old.
Yes, Jessie Duran was 11, but it's a common practice you can apply in the test to children that are slightly younger.
But you would agree with me, Dr. Couples, that age range exists so people know when to use the page scale, yes?
It's a guiding figure, but again, there's a little leeway.
Even if you can tell the members of the jury here today that Jessie Duran was a psychopath, you cannot tell us what she intended to do on that morning.
No, I can tell you what psychopaths are common to have seen, and then you can make conclusions on that.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, we ask that the witness may be excused.
Any more witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff would like to call Danny Brooks.
Is this the witness that will be used for statements?
And just so it's clear, this Mr. Park will also doing both the direct and cross of this witness. So, just so that is clear too.
Got it? Multiple personalities, so go.
Could you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record, please?
Yeah, that's Danny Brooks. Legally it's like Danielle or something, but whatever. Brooks.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Ms. Brooks?
Couldn't tell. I'm from New England. Go Patriots and all that.
And what do you do for a living, Ms. Brooks?
And that's the thing. I worked a little bit of everything. Been a tour guide, hot dog man. I mean, you named it, I probably worked it. Right now I got this pretty sweet babysitting gig. Kids love me. Can you blame them?
Who do you work for?
Let's see. Currently working for the Davises, the Allens, and the Bowmans. It's like 7 to 8 kids. Keeps me pretty busy.
Yeah, and I bet it would. Have you ever babysitted for the parks?
Yeah, I used to watch their daughter Sydney a couple years ago.
How often would you babysit for the parks, Ms. Brooks?
And like 3:30 to 8 on weekdays, or if they needed me for a random occasion, or something like that.
Did Sydney Park ever give you any problems while babysitting her?
Nah, Sydney Park was a jewel. The only issue I ever really had was when Jesse Duran would come over.
Jesse Duran. Could you tell us who that is?
Yeah, Jesse Duran was a kid who lived in the same street neighborhood, would be over at the Parks house all the time.
Okay, now, Ms. Brooks, could you tell us and the jury a little bit about Jesse and Sydney's relationship?
I guess you could say they were best friends, but I didn't like it. To me, it was always like, Jesse was bossing Sydney around or something.
You mentioned Jesse bossing Sydney around. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it was like things always had to be Jesse's way, If Sydney didn't really want to do that, or, put up any resistance, Jesse started screaming and yelling, pitching a fit. It was like New York and 5 o'clock traffic, just all the yelling and the screaming and the banging and the banging.
Now, when you would babysit, what kind of activities did they play?
Yeah, I guess the regular kid stuff, chasing each other and tag. They really liked those video games, but that kind of made some problems too, because the parks have rules about stuff like that.
And Miss Brooks, what rules did the parks have?
The parks were against anything that had, excessive guns, blood, violence. If it wasn't rated E for everyone, they weren't really into it. Unless, there was a supervising adult there.
And did Jesse follow these rules?
Jesse, follow the rules? Forget about it. Jesse would just keep bringing over the games anyway. And, the thing was, Jesse always, was wanting to do stuff like that, cops and robbers and all that stuff, Now that I think about it, Jesse, was always talking about guns.
Okay. Now, Miss Brooks, I'd like to talk about the gun in today's case. Were you aware that the parks had a gun in their home?
Yeah, I was.
And were you aware how they kept it?
Yeah, first time I was over, I noticed there was a safe in the bedroom, and, I didn't want to get surprised by anything, so, I thought I should ask. And, yeah, they told me they kept it there, in a safe in the bedroom closet.
Now, Miss Brooks, did you know the combination to the safe?
No, I did not. The parks did not provide me with it.
Did you know where the combination might have been?
Yeah, I knew where the combination was kept.
Where was it kept, Miss Brooks?
It was kept in the bottom right drawer, in the filing cabinet in the office/bedroom.
How did you know it was kept there?
They daughter Sydney
if anything, did Jesse say about wanting the gun?
Jesse just kept going on saying, you know, like, fake gun games are boring, Sid. Let's play with the real gun.
And when she said this, how soon was this before the incident?
Jesse said those things the day before Sydney died.
Now, did Jesse ever say anything else about the Parks gun?
Yeah, we were sitting on the couch or something again, and they were arguing, the kids, of course, were arguing over, like, what to watch. And I just put my foot down and was like, you know, it's Sydney's turn. So, Jesse didn't really like that.
Well, how did Jesse respond, Miss Brooks?
Jesse, you know, turned, looked at Sydney and said, I'm going to shoot you, Sydney. You're going to die.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor. Okay. Now, Miss Brooks, I would like to start off talking about how you felt about the Durant family. You didn't really like babysitting Jesse, did you?
And, you know, it wasn't my favorite, but, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. You know, bills gotta get paid, so, you know, you work. Ain't nothing perfect in this world.
And why didn't you like babysitting Jesse?
You know, it wasn't so much I didn't really like it. You know, it just was that there was more problems that, you know, arose over. You know, like when a kid's by himself, you know, they don't make so much trouble, you know, because they, you know, they just got themselves and their own ideas. But you put two heads together and you got so many more ideas. I mean, to me, it just, you know, multiple kids, multiple problems, you know.
So, Miss Brooks, back to my question. You were upset because Hayden Durant didn't pay you for babysitting Jesse. Rightfully so, correct?
I mean, it wasn't my favorite, and you know, the parks paid pretty good. You know, plus they had these like really good snacks at the house. I mean, like it was better than any house on the block.
Okay, now Miss Brooks, that was a yes to my question, correct?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. And now I would like to talk about how you felt about the Park family. You really liked the Parks, didn't you?
Yeah, they did a lot of good things for me. You know, they helped me really figure out my life.
And the Parks would always pay you for babysitting Sydney, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, they were the ones who hired me. I mean, it would make sense for them to pay me, you know.
And the Parks also went so far as to refer you to other clients.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing about business these days is, you know, you gotta network. You ain't networking, you ain't building. So, you know, I would say that a fair amount of my current clientele comes from the parks. And you know what that's an example of? Good networking. And I am proud of that.
Okay. So, Miss Brooks, you're sitting here telling us today that the Parks provided multiple sources of income for you, correct?
Well, you know, after, you know, the incident, they were helpful in helping me find work. I mean, they knew that I was struggling. So, they definitely were good to me. I mean, you can't fault me for being a smart businesswoman.
And Miss Brooks, you're sitting here today testifying in a trial between the Park family and the Durant family.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'd like to move on and talk about the gun in today's case. You were aware the Parks had the gun in their home, correct?
Yeah, I was.
And did Sydney ever mention anything about the gun?
Yeah, we had a conversation about it, you know.
What did Sydney say?
And, you know, she just said she might kind of, like, know where it was. You know, not like definitely knew, but she might have a little bit of an idea.
Now, Miss Brooks, when you talked with Sydney, she went so far as to say that she knew there was a gun in the safe, and she knew where the combination might be kept.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, she wasn't certain. She wasn't like, I know where the combination's kept. So.
Did you check where the combination might have been?
I mean, I might have gone looking, you know.
And what did you see?
I mean, I never, like, went and found, like, the combination itself. identity here. I ain't about that. I am relatively straight in all my business matters.
Okay. Now, Miss Brooks, when you went to look for the combinations, where Sydney told you, was there a folder marked for emergencies only?
Yeah, there was.
And did Sydney tell you there might be a folder marked with that?
No, she just said that, that was where they kept their important stuff.
Okay, and to be clear, this folder was exactly where Sydney said she might know where the combination was.
I mean, there was a bunch of folders in there. I mean, like I said, I didn't look in the folder, so I don't know, I'm assuming there's some tax stuff and stuff in there, but I ain't about that.
Thank you. No further questions.
Redirect to a witness.
I'm so confused about where I am.
Did you guys grab the ammo box?
Your Honor, all witnesses, at this time we ask for a brief recess to retrieve demo boxes and things of that nature. Okay.
I'm sorry, what point I got confused where I was at this
So are you normally in here?
No, I've never been. I've learned that directly across today. Started this morning.
I just wanted to try. Yeah, no, he said that to me. I know.
A little bit.
Somebody else was telling me.
Good idea, but only a little too far.
What?
But it could be done. Like it's
Well,
not.
Yeah, yeah.
let's be honest.
yeah, that
How
was-
many times have I been ready to listen to it?
No,
This
never.
is like the first time
The answer is
Brooke
never.
made it out of the box, and she ain't going back in her until
See, it wasn't so bad.
It wasn't
No,
baby
I
in the
mean,
corner.
I didn't.
nobody puts baby in a corner.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
fine. It's not easy to just transition.
I don't think this was.
I think it's competition. Grayson wants this book 11.
No, no.
Yeah, I tried to
I'm
convince
ready to give it to
her.
her.
Sometimes I'm in.
You have Megan has
But I-
competition. Yeah, no, it's fine. The green light's on, so you're good.
Wait, how long?
Oh. Well, then you should have
5
an
minutes.
awesome shot.
Hold on, wait. Hold on. Who's that? Are we bad?
No, no. The leading questions on cross were more painful. I'm sorry, the non-leading questions on cross were painful.
Yeah.
Take the voice and just open-ended questions.
Alright, we need read me all the things.
But this, you have this, like, you're so comfortable, like, so sorry, like, it's,
So I did okay?
yes, yes.
It wasn't like.
No, no, I'm happy. I'm glad.
And Mark was okay?
Yes.
Alright, okay.
Frank was up to standards. Breathe. Up to the sit.
I learned that directly across the board. I learned that directly across the board.
Yeah, I can do it tomorrow. I'll be back. No, I'm good, thank you. I got it.
Kristen, who's better attorney, me or Evan?
You guys have another pen?
Laura.
Well,
You said you're your attorney.
you sir, that I can bring to the
Whichever one of you comes out of kickball.
Yeah.
Katie.
There, you're right.
No, I think this one's here.
It can do it. You can do it. Holy
She told me my second. I don't know. Oh, you got levels and.
Yeah.
If you
so
do,
much
if
better.
you do this,
Like CCI was just
Well,
like
because we
non
fucking changed it the day before the fucking scrimmage. We should have just kept the same one.
It wasn't the day before. It was like the week before. None of these practiced all weekend. I'm so
I
mad at
did.
Joseph.
Okay.
So mad at Joseph.
Well, Joseph hasn't practiced since you joined the team.
Yeah, I don't understand. That's like,
I need it really bad.
That's just because you always have to stay. Alright, we're back to the meeting. Oh, okay.
he's a coward. I want this.
I'm proud of this. My favorite highlighters.
I have highlighters. I have hot highlighters in my bag.
I don't have my opening. Every time my opening, I start off here. I
I
start
don't
off.
know, because 30 seconds ago, you realize that, right?
Yeah, no. I
It
changed.
seems really long. But
Yeah.
It's really
I changed the comments. I don't know the cut. So hopefully, if I did it here, people would help me and tell me what to
no
cut.
one cut. Okay. Yeah.
And I knew it would go over, but like it's.
So like you said unreliable, and that last pocket at the end I don't think was
Was necessary.
necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, it felt like the end, and then you kept copying, and Laura was, and I was like, what happened?
Yeah. Okay.
After like Peter's slide turning in the picture.
Oh.
It needed to go down though, because what he did was he turned it and made it stare at the crying father.
No, I know. Like, no, I was gonna say like Sydney staring at me, telling me to do better, and I'm not doing better. Dr. Couples,
You shitty attorney.
you can't tell your crossing attorney that was a speculative question. Couples, we're not an attorney. Turn down.
Monique, you're not pressing.
I'm crossing Jesse.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
I lost.
That means I have to take notes during the cross. I'm gonna be up there like.
Monique, screensaver. Monique.
Monique, the screensaver. Oh, it has a pass. Oh, sorry. Again.
Got you.
Yeah. No, the Kayla cross.
Okay, yeah, still videotaping.
I figured because the green light was on, it was fine.
Oh man, they catch us all shit at you guys while you're home.
Oh,
I
true.
have,
It's
but-
okay, it'll be on the video. You can review it later.
I'll get back to you on that.
Is there a copy of the statement up there?
Is there what?
A copy of the statement?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if I'm in it. I literally just had it.
We stole it. Took them both.
I see that sabotage, Ryan. I see
You
you.
guys realize no one gave me anything, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
didn't realize that.
So I'm-
I realized that.
People keep like pointing to
So-
like they don't know.
So I'm
Did you pull it up on your computer?
So I'm doing pre-trial. I'm like, oh, time to tender evidence. And I was like, oh, I don't have evidence to which to tender.
It's all in your box. Left it for you guys.
I know it was all in my box, and I never took it out of the box. The box is not where I needed it to be. I just fucked up. Hope people come back. Oh, Jackson.
Honestly, wasn't as bad.
It can be fun, right?
If there's only one.
I can actually.
English is so hard. I know after your class, I just stood there like wandering on the floor.
I'm just not so like familiar with how that thing's read.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I will ask. Can we borrow some documents? You guys don't mind? No. Okay. I'm Dale Williams. Jesse.
Wait, like, wait, what is that?
David. We don't have a case box.
Sure.
We just wing it. And I'll see what one is Jesse.
Is that it?
Jerosa. Jerosa. Thank you so much. If you need an extra one, let us know. And I'll
I actually love that.
See, it looks like we actually like each other.
Yeah.
Let's go.
introduce yourself to the court?
Good evening. My name's Dill Williams.
What do you do for a living?
I'm the senior patrol officer with the MSPD.
What are your responsibilities as senior patrol officer?
Generally, just enforcing vehicle violations, responding to calls from dispatch. My senior status allows me to train some of the freshman officers.
Were you on duty August 18th, 2010?
Yes, I went on duty around 0800 a.m. that morning, and I received a call around 0945 a.m. For shots fired.
How did you respond to this call?
Well, I was the closest officer. It was at 23 Maple Street. So I turned on my lights and headed to the scene. I actually arrived at the exact same time as the paramedics.
What did you find when you arrived at the scene?
Well, I didn't know what was going on yet, so I instructed the paramedics to wait outside while I secured the scene. I actually brought along a diagram of the house to explain the steps that I took to you.
Your Honor, may we use the court to have a demonstrative for Officer Williams to use?
Has the council seen this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection to it?
No, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Officer Williams, if you'd like to step down. Now, Officer Williams, what was the first step in your investigation?
Well, the first thing I did was approach the front door, which is located right here. Which is located right here. Upon entering the home, I saw 2 children and a 9mm revolver to my left.
Could you please indicate where the children were on this arrangement?
Yes, Jesse Duran was sitting in this tan chair over here, and Sydney Park was lying in between the coffee table and the couch.
You mentioned there was a revolver on the scene. Can you indicate where you found that?
Yes, I found the revolver right in front of Jesse's feet.
Now, when you entered the home, how did Jessie act when she saw you?
Well, I walked in and Jessie was just sitting in the chair. I asked her if there was anyone else in the home, and she offered no response. Then I proceeded to secure the rest of the home.
Did you find anyone else in the home?
I did not. Upon a search of the entire home, I found no evidence of forced entry, and I saw no evidence that there was anyone else in the home at all.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. You can retake the stand. Now, Officer Williams, did you question Jessie when you arrived at the scene?
No, I did not. It was obvious that Jessie was a minor, and that would have gone against protocol.
And did you ever question Jessie that day?
No, I left her in the kitchen with 2 other officers, and I instructed them not to question her as well. But after I secured the scene and returned to the kitchen, Jessie had written a statement down.
Would you recognize that statement if I showed it to you today?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench and retrieve what has already been marked as defense A?
Yes.
And may I approach the witness? Officer Williams, do you recognize what I just handed you?
Yes, this is the statement that Jessie drew maybe 15 minutes after the shooting.
And can you tell us what this statement says?
Jessie starts off by saying, "I thought it would be nice to see a real gun. I was so excited when I heard Sydney's house had one."
Does Jessie mention what she did with this gun?
Yes, it says that she played a game.
And does Jessie say anything else?
She ends the statement by saying, "It was all an accident. I was just playing."
Thank you, Officer Williams. I have no further questions. May I approach and retrieve the document? And may I attend back to the dishes?
That morning you received a phone call that shots had been fired at the Parks home, correct?
No, I didn't receive a phone call. Dispatch called me about a call of shots fired.
And you rushed to the Parks home around 9:48 a.m. that morning, correct?
Yes, maybe a minute after I got the call from dispatch.
And at 9:51, not even 3 minutes after you rushed to the home, you called the owner of the home.
Yeah, I was still on my way to the home. I called Mr. Park to see if I could find out if he was at the home or if he could offer me any information about what was going on. Unfortunately, he was not there.
But you did get a hold of Mr. Park, correct?
Yes, I talked to him. He informed me he wasn't home.
And you hadn't searched inside or outside the home before you alerted the owner, had you?
No, I was on my way there.
So you called a citizen and told him to head to a home where shots had just been fired without having made sure the home was even safe.
No, I asked him if he was home so I could see if I could learn any information about what was going on. Unfortunately, he was not home.
But when you got to the house, you saw a man standing outside, correct?
Yes, a man I later learned was Terry Chapin.
And you didn't ask Terry Chapin why he was outside the home, did you?
I was a little bit more concerned with the shots fired call that I had gotten inside the home.
So you left this man outside of the home alone, no one watching him, without even having questions.
There were several EMTs there. My first objective was to secure the scene where the shots fired were. He was standing in the street.
When you got inside the home, you saw two kids.
Yes, I saw Jesse sitting in the tan chair, and I saw Sydney lying in between the coffee table and the couch.
There was a gunshot to Sydney's head, wasn't there?
Yes, Sydney had a very obvious gunshot wound to the head.
Tons of blood.
Yes, there was a lot of blood.
And Jesse, to clarify, was sitting a few feet away from Sydney at the time, correct?
Probably 6 feet away in the tan armchair I showed you earlier on the layout of the house.
Jesse wasn't yelling out for anyone to help Sydney.
No, Jessie was just sitting in the chair. In fact, I asked Jessie if there was anyone else in the home, and she offered me no response.
So Jesse sat there expressionless?
Yes, Jessie was just sitting in the chair.
I'd like to talk about your investigation now. You were the leading officer on this investigation, correct?
Yes, for about the first 2 hours of the investigation, I was the senior officer on the scene.
And within these 2 hours, you conducted some searches.
Yes, I searched the entire park home.
And you also searched the Duran home, did you not?
Yes, I searched both homes. I actually had to go retrieve some clothes for Jessie so that Jules Sebastian could test the clothes that Jessie was wearing at the time.
And when you went over to the Duran home to get clothes for Jesse, you noticed a large media center.
Living room? Yes.
I'm sorry. And you also noticed a large amount of video games.
Yes, there was some video games in the room.
And you were shocked by these video games, weren't you?
I thought it was odd that they would be in the living room. They seemed like they were for older people. I actually have a daughter myself.
And these video games that seemed to be for older people were very violently, the covers were very violent, correct?
They appeared that way, yes.
There was a lot of blood, violence, guns, things of that nature.
Yes, they looked like mature video games.
And these video games that would look like mature video games were not placed on a high shelf.
No, they were just in the living room.
And they were not locked up in a case in the living room.
No, they were just in the living room.
So these violent, mature video games were just lying on the floor in the living room, easily accessible to anyone.
It appeared that way, yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect? No redirect, Your Honor. I just asked the officer to be allowed to step down.
The defense calls Asher Rosa to the stand. Good evening. Could you please state your name for the members of the jury?
Yes, my name is Ash DeRosa.
What do you do for a living, Mr. DeRosa?
I teach undergraduate and graduate courses at Midland State University on research methods and violence prevention. I also to write extensively on the subject of firearm safety.
Where did you receive your educational training?
Well, I received my master's from Tufts University in Boston before obtaining my doctorate locally here at Midland State University.
Has any of your research ever been published?
Yes, I'm happy to say that I've successfully had over 30 articles published in scientific, peer-reviewed journals.
Have you ever testified in trial as you are today?
Yes, including today, this will be my 4th time in trial. Each time I gave my expert testimony and opinion regarding firearm safety.
Are you being compensated for the work you did in this case?
Of course I am. This job took me several hours to prepare for, and it took me away from my other responsibilities, so I'm being compensated for my work done.
What materials did you review in preparation for your testimony?
I was provided with the sworn statements of Danny Brooke, the babysitter, Hayden Duran, and Andy Park, as well as pictures of the Park's safe combination and a layout of the Park's household.
Did these materials provide you with enough information to form conclusions?
Yes, sir, it was more than enough.
In forming those conclusions, what methods did you use?
I use methods which are used by firearm safety experts around the world. These methods have been peer-reviewed, cited in numerous scientific journals, and are the reliable, verified industry standard.
Did you apply those methods reliably to the facts of this case?
Yes, sir, I did.
Well, I'd like to talk about firearms themselves. Are there any dangers associated with owning a firearm?
Of course there are. Firearms can kill. It's partly what they're designed to do. And even with the proper safety training, firearms can still be dangerous. I like to think of them sort of as like wild animals. You can tame or domesticate them, but even the slightest misstep can prove fatal.
What are some of those risks associated with firearms?
Well, the biggest risk when dealing with firearms is the threat of an accidental discharge. A recent study has shown that people who have owned a gun for at least a year, over 50% of them have accidentally fired their weapon at least one time. To demonstrate that, that's better odds than flipping tails on a coin.
How does an accidental discharge happen?
Well, accidental discharges can happen in a multitude of ways. You could drop the gun, it can cause it to fire, or you can grip the trigger in instances where ammunition's been left in the gun without any intent of actually firing it. I remember working on a recent case in which a police officer accidentally fatally shot someone when he thought his weapon had been loaded with rubber bullets, but actually the bullets were live.
Are there any reasons why an accidental discharge would be more likely?
Yes, there are a few reasons that can cause an accidental discharge to be more likely. The biggest ones would have to be a lack of proper safety training in using the weapon, and the age of the person wielding the weapon.
Well, let's take each of those one at a time. Why is training important when it comes to accidental discharges?
Well, guns are very dangerous just on their own ends. Without the proper safety training, you just can lose track of what's going on.
How does a lack of safety training increase the risk of an accidental discharge?
Well, firearms can be very complicated, and without the proper safety training, the person using it just might not understand all the consequences of their actions when holding that gun. It's a lot how, like, when 16-year-olds first begin to drive, they're much more likely to get into car accidents.
From all the research that you did Jesse Duran ever have any firearm safety training?
From all the evidence I reviewed, it didn't appear that Jesse Duran had ever received firearm safety training or even held a gun until August 18th.
Well, let's talk about the second reason you mentioned. Why is age important when it comes to an accidental discharge?
Well, recent studies have shown that there are certain age groups which are much more at risk for incurring an accidental discharge than others.
What age group is most vulnerable for accidental discharges?
Research has shown that the age group of 10 to 14-year-olds are the most at risk for an accidental discharge.
How old was Jesse Duran at the time of the incident?
Jesse Duran was 11 years old on August 18th, 2010. This put her at the lower portion of that age group I just talked about.
Now, from all the research that you did in today's case, what did you conclude about Jesse Duran's risk for an accidental discharge?
On August 18th, 2010, Jesse Duran was at substantial danger for incurring an accidental discharge. She she had many different risk factors working against her. Not only was she 11 years old and in the middle of that heightened age group, but she had never received training to use a gun before or even held one. All these added up to increase the danger substantially.
Thank you, Mr. DeRosa. No further questions at this time.
Oh, yes.
If the green light's on, it should be.
Yeah.
Is it on?
Yep, we're good to go.
Dr. Dorks, I'd like to ask you about your investigation.
Sure, certainly, just go ahead.
You've never fired a gun, have you?
No, I've never actually fired a gun in my life, but the fire marshal does have to go around lighting fires to understand the inherent risk that a fire poses.
So it's a no, Dr. DeRosa.
Yes, like I said, I've never fired a gun.
And you never visited the park's home in your investigation, did you?
No, when I was hired, they had already vacated the house and removed all the furniture, so the scene wasn't even been set up to tell me anything from that day.
And you never interviewed the parks regarding their gun, did you?
No, they didn't want to speak with me.
Now, Dr. DeRosa, let's talk about the gun and how it was kept. The parks kept the gun for home safety, is that correct?
Yes, from the sworn statements I read, it appeared that the parks owed the gun because they'd been broken into and wanted protection. That's understandable.
And this gun was kept in a safe.
Yes, they kept it in a safe.
And wouldn't you agree that a safe is the right place to keep a gun in a home?
Yes, that is a proper step in maintaining and keeping the gun secure.
Now, the combination to the safe was written on a piece of paper.
Yes, they did keep the safe.
Objection, Your Honor, to relevance. May I be heard? The location, storage of the gun safe and the combination of that safe makes no matter in this case more or less relevant. The claim of intentional shooting is about whether or not Jesse Duran intended to shoot and kill Sidney Park. The storage of the gun doesn't make that more or less likely.
Your Honor, I'm eliciting this testimony regarding how accessible the gun was to show that Jesse had to have taken substantial steps in acquiring this gun, which shows willful misconduct, an element of our case. Now, Dr. DeRosa, the word safe was not written on this piece of paper, was it?
No, but the parks made a multitude of errors in allowing the gun to be easily accessible.
But was the word safe written on that piece of paper?
No, it was just a piece of paper with several numbers on it.
So there were no words written anywhere on this piece of paper.
No, there was no words written on the paper.
And the word safe wasn't written on the folder it was contained in, was it?
No, I don't believe the word safe was written anywhere in the household.
Nor the word combination on that folder.
I don't remember seeing that in any of the evidence either.
And the folder which contained this piece of paper was in a file cabinet with maybe 50 to 100 other files.
Yes, but it just doesn't make any sense because that file cabinet was kept in an unsecure room inside the house and it still had what was clearly a combination written down on it.
But you would agree that it would take a certain amount of searching to find a specific piece of paper.
Well, I didn't live at the park's house, so I would be starting out not knowing where they keep important files.
In your investigation, did you come across anything that would lead you to think that the parks disclosed this combination to anyone?
No, I didn't remember hearing any testimony about the parks telling anyone where their combination was.
Now let's talk about the gun itself. It was a revolver, wasn't it?
Yes, it was an 80 Baker 9mm 6-shot revolver.
And wouldn't you agree that a revolver is an easy gun to load?
Well, comparatively it can be, but in my expert opinion, it was highly unlikely that Jesse Duran would have known how to load that revolver.
But you would agree that there are instructions on how to load a gun available via a simple web search.
Well, of course, you can find comprehensive
In your own words, it is possible that someone could figure out how to load this type of gun just by looking at it.
Well, sure. I mean, if you thought about it hard enough, I'm sure you could figure it out. But once again, I reiterate that in my expert opinion, Jesse Duran was very unlikely to have loaded that weapon.
But you acknowledge that it is possible.
Yes, it's possible.
Now, in your own words, you also acknowledge that someone would know if this type of gun was loaded just by looking at it.
Well, you can't just look at a revolver and know that it's loaded. You'd have to know how to open it up, know all the mechanisms involved in firing it. That's why proper safety training is essential for using a gun.
So if someone was to open the chamber of this gun, they would be able to tell if it was loaded or not.
If they knew what they were looking for, yes. But once again, these children were inexperienced with firearms. Neither of them had ever received proper safety training. So I can't say that they knew what to look for.
Now, Dr. DeRosa, let's talk about why you took this case. Is your email address aderosa@parentsagainstguns.com?
Yes, that is my working address. I'm involved with a committee which likes to advise parents about proper gun safety in the home, and one of their tenets is to not own the gun if unnecessary.
And isn't it also true that in all prior cases you've been retained as an expert, the opposing party has been a gun owner?
Yes, this is a unique case because typically when a fatality is caused in a household, it's a member of that own family who was misusing the gun. In this case, it was Jesse Duran, who was a neighbor, who was involved in misusing the gun.
So let me break down a couple things, Dr. DeRosa. You've worked 75 hours on this case, isn't that correct?
Yes, it's taken a lot of hours away from my research at Midland State, like I knew it would, which was one of the reasons why I didn't initially want to work on this case.
And you've worked 500, and you're being paid $500 per hour.
Yes, in fact, in total, I'm being paid about $42,000 for all the work that I've prepared for this case.
And that's twice what you're normally paid, yes or no, Dr. DeRosa?
Well, I can't say it's what I'd normally be paid because it goes on a by-hour basis, but Hayden
Dr.
Duran
DeRosa,
is... Oh,
per
excuse
hour.
me, were you going to finish?
Dr. DeRosa, per hour you are being paid twice as much as you normally are.
Well, yes, Hayden Duran offered to double my pay, and I wasn't going to say no
Thank
to
you,
that.
Dr. DeRosa. No further questions.
No redirect, Your Honor. We just ask that Mr. Rose is allowed to step down from the stand.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense now calls Jesse Duran. Please introduce yourself to the court.
My name is Jessie Duran.
Jesse, do you know a Sydney Park?
She was my best friend. We were like sisters.
Could you tell us more about your relationship with Sydney?
Like I said, we hung out all the time. Mr. Park used to joke that I was like his second daughter. I was over there all the time. That summer, I think we spent almost every night together.
Do you remember the day of August 18, 2010?
I'll never forget it.
I want to break this day down. How did it begin?
I woke up really early that morning. I was excited to go over to Sydney's house.
Why were you excited to go over to Sydney's house?
Sydney had told me that her parents had a gun and we were going to take it out and play with it.
Did you end up going over to the Park's house on that morning?
My mom walked me over on her way to work.
When you arrived at the Park's home, who was there?
It was just Mr. Park,
you usually left home alone?
No, my mom didn't let me stay home alone. She didn't think I was old enough.
On that morning, did you end up finding the gun?
Sydney had found the combination, so we used that to open the safe.
How did you know the Parks owned the gun?
Sydney had somehow found out about it, and when she found the combination, we figured that's where we could find the gun, was in the safe.
Was it difficult to open the safe?
No, Sydney made a comment about how the combination was easy to guess, that it was just her birthday and her parents' birthdays. And
Objection on irrelevance is the combination being easy to guess.
May I respond, Your Honor? In today's case, the plaintiff is pursuing a claim of intentional shooting, which specifically to prove intentional shooting, they must show willful misconduct. In this instance, I'm showing that the combination to the safe was easy to remember and that enabled Jesse and Sydney to open the safe. It's absolutely relevant.
Your Honor, if I may?
Yes.
Sydney's saying that she could have easily guessed the combination. This would make Jesse's willful misconduct more or less probable and isn't relevant to today's case.
Your Honor, Ms. Elwal just illustrated that the fact that Sydney was able to guess the combination and thus worked with Jesse in finding the gun. This directly relates to whether Jesse was willfully acting in it goes directly to the fact of whether Jesse was acting willfully in an improper manner.
Yes, Your Honor.
Jesse, was the safe difficult to open?
No, Sydney realized that the combination was just her birthday and her parents' birthdays, and that she could have guessed it without even finding the piece of paper.
After you opened the safe and retrieved the gun, what did you do?
The first thing I did was I opened it up, and I didn't see anything that looked like a bullet. I didn't want to play with the gun if I thought it was loaded, and I didn't think it was.
After you checked whether the gun was loaded, what did you do?
At first, we just took turns holding it, passing it back and forth to each other, feeling bang and shooting at things. We even posed like Charlie's Angels. I know now it's stupid, but at the time, that's what we did.
After you played with the gun, what did you do?
I got bored, so I went into the other room to watch TV. I waited for Sydney to come back, and when she came back, she didn't want to watch TV, so I asked her if she wanted to play roulette on our video game system like we always did.
To clarify, what is the game of roulette?
It's a game Sydney and I used to play on our video games. We would take turns shooting each other's characters.
When you made this request to Sydney, did she react?
She just looked down at her mom and dad's gun and said, "Let's play the real way."
Did you and Sydney end up playing the real way?
Sydney wanted to play, so she went first.
Could you walk us through what happened during Sydney's turn?
Sydney picked up the gun and she spun the middle part of it like we did on our games. I remember closing my eyes and I heard the click. I opened my eyes and Sydney was just staring back at me. Then it was my turn.
Jesse, I know this may be hard for you, so if you need a moment, please let me know.
I'm okay.
What happened during your turn of the game?
I picked up the gun and I spun it, just like Sydney
approach the witness with the tissue? Yes, right. After gunshot rang out, did you see what happened to Sydney?
I just remember Sydney on the floor and there being so much blood. I didn't know what to do, so I called my mom.
On that morning, did you mean to shoot Sydney?
No, Sydney was my best friend. Never would have played if I knew one of us could get hurt.
On that morning, did you load the Parks revolver?
No, Sydney was my best friend. I never would have agreed to play if I knew either one of us could have gotten hurt.
Thank you, Jesse. No further questions, John.
May I proceed? Yes. Hi, Jesse, I have a few questions for you about that day. I want to start that very first thing that morning.
Okay.
When you woke up, you were really excited to go to the park home.
Sydney and I were really excited to see our parents go.
You knew you'd be staying a gun that day.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why the first thing you did when you woke up is you searched how to load a revolver.
My mom had found out the night before that I knew about the Parks gun and told me over and over again how I wasn't supposed to play with it. I looked up how to load a revolver so I would know if there was any bullets inside because she kept telling me over and over again that one of us could get really hurt.
So Jesse, that's a yes. You searched how to load a revolver on the morning that Sydney was shot.
Yes, ma'am.
Then you went over to Sydney's house.
Yes.
And that's when you two went looking for the gun.
Sydney had the combination, so we went and took the gun out together.
Now, I was listening really closely to your direct, and you mentioned a game called Russian roulette.
Yes.
And that's why you're saying here today in court that Sydney was shot.
We were playing the game. That's how Sydney got shot.
Let's talk about what you actually said on the day of the shooting. Your Honor, permission to approach the bench and receive defense A, as well as opposing counsel for the other defense A. Honor, permission to approach the witness for defense A. Mr. Aaron, what I just handed you is a copy of a statement written by you.
Yes, ma'am.
You wrote this on the day of the shooting.
Yes.
You wrote this before you got a chance to talk with your parent, Hayden Duran. And in this statement, can you show me where you used the word Russian roulette?
I said that we were playing a game.
Jesse, where in here do you use the words Russian roulette?
I didn't. I just said we were playing because we were.
Let's talk about what else you say in here. You say that you thought it'd be cool to see a real gun.
I did. Everything in this letter's true. Everything that happened that day.
You also say in here, that's why I came over today. And why I made Sydney tell me the combination, the safe, after Andy had left. These are your words, aren't they?
Yeah, Sydney held the combination and I punched the letters in.
Now, you say in here that Sydney didn't want to. Well, you told her, Sydney, it'll be fine.
Objection to cumulative, Your Honor. May I be heard on that matter? Yes. This document has already been entered into evidence. Speaking to what it specifically says by reading off the document is cumulative and wastes the court's time.
Your Honor, if I may, this is the witness's own statement. And in her deposition, she disputes that some of these statements are untrue. Your Honor, we want to clarify that the court, these statements are all true, and in some ways contradict what she said on direct.
Your Honor, she can point out the contradiction read off the document. It's cumulative.
Jesse, what you said on here is that you told Sydney it would be fine, even though Sydney didn't want to play.
Sydney wanted to play with the gun herself. She didn't want to play with me at first, but then she decided she wanted to.
And I'm pushing to approach and retrieve.
Yes.
Sydney, I want to talk about, or excuse me, Jesse, I want to talk a little bit about your knowledge of guns.
Okay.
Now, you often play violent video games, games that involve guns.
I really like video games.
You would play first-person shooter games.
Yes, ma'am.
And with these games, you'd be looking right down the eye of that barrel as you shot your victims.
Yes.
Now, from your knowledge of video games, you know that guns are used to shoot people.
Yes.
You know that when you pull the trigger of a gun, people get hurt.
I didn't think the gun was loaded. It was supposed to be a game, so no one could have gotten hurt.
Jesse, you should focus on my question. You know that when you pull the trigger of a gun, people can get hurt. You know that to be true.
Yes, but I didn't think the gun was loaded, or I wouldn't have played.
Jesse, you knew that. You know that today. You knew that 4 years ago.
Yes.
I want to talk about the actual Russian roulette game. It was just you and Sydney in that house.
Yes, ma'am.
And when Sydney suggested playing roulette, you said, "Sure, Sydney, let's play."
No, she wanted to play, so she went first.
You didn't tell Sydney, "No, I don't want to play."
No, I didn't think there'd be a problem with us playing because, like I said, none of us could have gotten hurt.
Right, so you picked up that gun
Yes.
and you took your turn.
After Sydney did, I heard the gun click and nothing happened to me.
Mr. Rand, you picked up that gun and you pointed it at Sydney's head.
Yes.
And you pulled that trigger.
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. May I approach the bench to retrieve a piece of evidence? May I approach the witness? I want to talk about this note that you just testified about. When you referred to playing with it, what did you mean?
We were playing roulette with Mr. and Mrs. Park's gun.
When you play video games, are the guns loaded?
Yes, that's why when we played roulette with Mr. and Mrs. Park's gun, I checked to see if it was unloaded because I didn't want anyone to get hurt like they did for video games.
When you played the game on August 18th, 2010, do you know it was real?
It wasn't going to be real. If the gun wasn't loaded, none of us could have gotten hurt.
No further questions, Your Honor. May I approach the bench?
Any recalls?
No, Your Honor. This witness may be excused.
With that, Your Honor, the defense rests its case in chief and is ready to move to closing arguments.
Your Honor, the plaintiff requests a brief 5-minute recess.
5 minutes.
Thanks, Africa. Try to eat a man for us. I see you.
How is that a thing? How is that a thing? Are we the only people that haven't seen that? People have been saying that all weekend. We're like, what is Ian Lambert?
Of course, because you're on defense.
Huh?
Of course, you're on defense. You get like 8 minutes to think about what to say.
I mean,
I just didn't know it was called ASD.
I'm actually new to my deal pattern.
Trying to
I see you. I see you.
Oh, I will. I'll be like,
Don't pull McLean's gun.
no, everyone says when I'm listening, I just want to. Just like,
Just believe it. Could you hear back? You're like, oh no. Like, freaking Cookie Monster. Does anyone have chapstick? Do you guys have one? I actually do not. Normally I do, but I don't have it in this jacket. It's really odd. Plastic, cloth, anything of that nature. Bang it.
Do you want chapstick or
Yes, chapstick. She got the hookup.
That's
I see you from your position of powers. Looking down upon us.
I like your purple costume. I'm glad you're bringing it back.
Oh God, I liked it so much. If only Megan could like let her along the airflow. We'd really be a purple
I
costume.
want it pretty bad.
Remember?
Purple hair.
Right.
Now that I can allow
So big.
Aw, listen. Were you dying back there?
Well, I can always default to purple hair.
But there has to be kind of costumes. But he did tell me this on his not very bright. There's just like no excuse there. Like, yeah. So that was a good summary. That was a good crossover. That was fun.
Can you do it? I can spell for her.
I can smell her. I can smell her hair.
Yeah, like it's super strong.
Your Honor, that's 6 years ago. Forming and students use on the other team. They can't use them too.
Like nobody told my team.
What's
To
right?
cry.
Yeah. No, nobody told them like the like Arab is better and like even Abby does too.
Who did you? Or you guys are
wonderful doctor over here.
Yeah, Alex Carey. Alex Carey.
Especially the solo one.
First time she had an hour.
Did you see my text messages doing what you asked me to? Go look at the group message.
I see no text messages.
You guys have group messages too? I bet.
I sent like 15. And just look at
It's a given.
here at his girlfriend's request. Holy pussy lips.
It's
Not weird for a girl.
so bad. You don't want to look at it. No, I'm
It was weird. His girlfriend didn't like it.
They're driving.
He looks great.
I'm not trying to get coach.
It's the same for he shaved his beard for his girlfriend. I kicked him in the ball.
That is not right.
He shaved his beard. He has a girlfriend?
The way that was structured, though.
Yes.
Well, especially because, like, the whole time I've known the plane, there's been, like, Bushmen, like, from, like, the cheekbones down.
Yeah, sure. I've never seen his jam. It's just always, are you going to get
I think you're
Well, anytime, I know my cross is a little bit too loud. I can see his face fast. Too loud, too fast.
Yeah. Like here we go.
Oh, I love being. Yeah, I know I'm cross. I will say that was just exactly
That's fine.
every time I've ever decided.
Wow.
You're just like
I know. I got out of my mouth.
Oh yeah, you can totally do that.
I don't mean to get loud. I just get excited.
Who needs sucking up to the dredge?
True. Don't say it like that. It just like breaks my heart.
I was too loud.
Oh, the second time. That's important. So important.
Yeah.
Real special.
Yeah. I went to my
So, like,
This is opposite where that's going.
Monique,
Oh.
are you dead?
Hey, I want to go for the
Hey, you guys. Michaela. You ready to proceed with closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
May it please the court, counsel, members of the jury. On August 18th, 2010, Cindy Park woke up not knowing it would be the last day of her life. She woke up like any other day, excited to spend time with her best friend, Jessie Duran. They spent every day together since they were babies. But she had no way of knowing that on that day, Jessie Duran would point a loaded gun at her head and pull the trigger. How could an 11-year-old girl know something like this? Cindy's life was ended by the person she called her best friend, by the person she thought was her best friend. Now, this may seem crazy to you today, but it wasn't so crazy to the people who knew Jessie Duran. You heard from Andy Park, who told you that Jessie manipulated Cindy. How Jessie was always trying to bring over these violent, horrific video games that he wanted his daughter to have nothing to do with. But Jessie kept trying. And unfortunately, Mr. Park found out too late that Jessie was a bad influence on Cindy. Parks found out the hard way that Jessie wasn't just playing video games. She was really capable of killing. Now you also heard from Terry Chapin, their neighbor, who was home the day of the shooting. He told you how when he heard that gunshot, he rushed over to help and see if there was something he could do. But what he found in that house on that day would change his life forever. He found Cindy Park's lifeless body on the floor in a pool of blood, and Jessie Duran staring calmly back at him. Now, Mr. Chapin wanted to help Cindy. He wanted to see if there was something he could do. Jessie was on the phone, but she wasn't calling for help. Mr. Chapin had to do that. Now, Jessie looked into Mr. Chapin's eyes and said, "She's dead." You also heard from Dr. Couples, who was able to testify that Jessie Duran is now and was on that day a psychopath. He told you that she is defiant and aggressive, and capable of doing such a thing. Now, we're here today to bring justice for Cindy. And we can't do that until we prove one thing by a preponderance of the evidence, that Jessie intentionally shot Cindy. Preponderance of the evidence means that you must believe, more likely than not, that she intended to shoot her. But why would Hank Duran be liable for that? If a child under the age of 15 commits a crime, the parent can be held responsible. That's vicarious liability. Now, there's 4 elements to the intentional shooting claim, 2 of which everyone here today agrees upon. 1, that Hayden Duran is the parent and guardian of Jessie Duran. And 2, that the bullet fired from the Park's gun is what killed Cindy. Now, that just leaves willful misconduct and causation. We must prove that Jessie's act of willful misconduct directly caused Sydney's death. Now, Jessie herself was on that stand and told you that she knew guns were dangerous. She knew that they killed people. And knowing and understanding all of this, she chose to get the Parks gun, she chose to point it at Sydney's head, and she chose to pull that trigger. Members of the jury, there is no question that if Jessie had not pointed the gun at Sydney's head, she would not have been shot that day. The Parks would not have lost their daughter. None of us would be here. But now the burden of proof lies with us. And we must prove, by preponderance of the evidence, that she intentionally shot Sydney. More likely than not. That's 51%. And we've proven this today. Now, if Sydney were alive today, she'd be 15 years old, just starting her freshman year of high school. But instead, she's in the Sweet Hills graveyard under a willow tree. And we know why she isn't here. She isn't here because Jessie Duran pointed a loaded gun at her head and pulled the trigger. Why would an 11-year-old shoot their best friend? Members of the jury, we now know that Jessie Duran is a psychopath. And psychopaths don't have friends, only potential victims. And unfortunately for Sydney, she became one of those victims when Jessie pointed a loaded gun at her head and pulled that trigger. Now, we know Jessie played all kinds of killing games, but we've proven that on August 18th, it wasn't just a game. It wasn't some game on a TV or a PlayStation. There were no cords, no plastic controllers, no pause, no restart. It wasn't game over. When Jessie Duran pulled that trigger, Sydney's life was over. It was a real gun with a real shooter and a very real victim. That victim was Sydney Park. So we ask that you find justice for Sydney and the Park family. We ask that you find Hayden Duran liable for the actions of Jessie Duran. Thank you.
Your Honor, before I proceed, may I approach and retrieve evidence? May it please the court, Ms. Manis, members of the jury. Jessie Duran thought she was playing a game she'd played countless times before. She had no idea how tragically, at this time, the game would end. Because that's just what happened on August 18, 2010, a tragedy. And our hearts go out to Andy and Lee Park for the loss of their daughter, Sydney. But unfortunately, nothing that we do here in trial today will ever bring her back. And that gives you members of the jury the most difficult job of all, of looking past the emotion of this case and looking only at the facts. The facts that my co-counsel, Mr. Checkinover, told you at the very beginning of today's trial remain true. On that morning, two 11-year-old girls were left alone and unsupervised. That those two 11-year-old girls were able to access the Parks revolver, and that those two 11-year-old girls played a game. A game that unfortunately ended with the tragic death of Sydney Park. Now, because of these facts, that the plaintiff has brought a claim of intentional shooting against Ms. Hay Durant. Now, in the state of Midlands, parents are held vicariously and strictly liable for the intentional torts of their minor children. Now, what that simply means is that because Jesse is a minor, the plaintiff must sue Hayden Durant for Jesse's actions. The claim of intentional shooting must be proven by a preponderance of the evidence, which means that they must prove each and every element of intentional shooting by the greater weight of the evidence. The evidence in its most convincing and persuasive form. They had to show you, prove to you, that Jesse Durant intended to harm Sydney Park. That on that day that Jesse Durant intentionally put a bullet inside of that revolver. That when Jesse Durant pointed that gun at Sydney's head, she did so with the intent to shoot her best friend in the head. Now, the plaintiff holds this burden. Has not shifted and it has not lessened. They alone carry that burden to prove it to you. And how did they do it? Well, they called a couple of witnesses. And they started with Andy Park. Now, yes, his story was tragic. But what did he actually tell us? That Jesse liked video games. That's it. He told you that he wasn't there on the morning of August 18th. He has no idea what happened inside of that home. Members of the jury told us nothing. Next, they called Terry Chapin, someone who was actually at the scene that day. But what did Terry Chapin tell us? That when he got to the home that day, when he asked Jessie what happened, she burst into tears. He told you that the words out of Jesse's mouth, what Jesse told him, what happened that morning is that the two children were playing a game. That she didn't think anything would happen. Finally, they called you the other star witness. Dr. Couple sat right here and told you about psychopathy. But he used a scale, the PAIJ scale. And this scale was designed for people from the ages of 12 to 16. But how old is Jesse Durant? 11. When asked about the standards in this scale, he talked about defiance of authority. He labeled Jesse Durant a psychopath because an 11-year-old girl didn't want to tie her shoes. That an 11-year-old girl didn't want to put away her toys. Members of the jury, is it unreasonable that an 11-year-old girl doesn't want to put away her toys? He told you that Jesse Durant only met the minimum requirements of the scale. That if he made only one mistake, Jesse would no longer be a psychopath. But that doesn't even matter. Because the last words out of Dr. Couple's mouth was that even if Jesse Durant was a psychopath, he cannot tell us what she intended to do that morning. At each and every point in the plaintiff's case, there's no intent. But we call some witnesses of our own to show you that they failed to meet their burden. Ashta Rosa, a firearm safety expert, told you about an accidental discharge. That's when the gun fires without the intent to do so. He told you how Jessie had no firearm safety training, and that made her more at risk for an accidental discharge. That Jessie was an 11-year-old, putting her in the most vulnerable age group of accidental discharges. But the story that you heard from Officer William aligned exactly with what Jesse Durant told you. Because Jesse bravely took the stand to tell you exactly what happened that morning. That the two children were going to play a game. That morning they took out the park safe, and the first thing Jesse Durant did was think back to her mother's warnings. So she opened the cylinder of that revolver and she looked inside, and what did she see? 6 empty chambers. The gun wasn't loaded. Now, Miss Manners told you that Jessie Duran knew the dangers of guns, but Jessie told you on the stand that she knew the only way that guns can fire is there's a bullet inside. And that's why she checked to make sure that that gun wasn't loaded. But when it was time to play the game, Jessie didn't go first. Sydney did. Jessie told you how Sydney picked up that revolver, how Sydney opened the cylinder, gave it a stick. And that when Sydney pointed that gun right at Jessie's head and pulled the trigger, what happened? Click. Nothing happened. Because Jessie Duran thought that that gun was unloaded. She just watched her best friend point the gun right at her head and pull the trigger. And nothing happened. So when it was Jessie's turn, she had no hesitation. She did exactly what Sydney had just done. She pulled the revolver up, spun the cylinder, pointed and pulled the trigger. But unfortunately for everyone, that gun wasn't. But what did Jessie tell you? Moments after the shooting happened, we were just playing a game. It was an accident. Every moment, every witness, proven to you time and time again that not a single person can tell you what Jessie Duran intended to do except Jessie herself. And every single person, Terry Chapin, Officer Williams, and Jessie herself told you the exact same story. It was just a game. A game that she didn't understand the consequences of playing. When you go back to that deliberation, review all the testimony, review all of the evidence. You don't have to listen to what I told you. You don't have to listen to what Miss Manners told you. You'll be left with the only conclusion that speaks from the facts. Find Hayden Duran not lying. Thank you.
Members of the jury, the defense wants you to think that this was some harmless game. But on that day, Jessie Duran knew that guns weren't harmless. Minutes before she went over to the Parks home that morning, she Googled how to load a revolver. She didn't Google how to make sure a revolver wasn't loaded. And she made the search, supposedly, so she would know if there was a bullet in the chamber. She researched this. And then she got on that stand and told you that she looked into the chamber of that gun. So she had taken the time to research how to see if a bullet is in a revolver, and then she looked to check. But she claims there wasn't one. Now, whether or not you believe Jessie Duran is a psychopath, you must believe, because she has admitted it herself, that she knew that guns killed people. And she knew that she should not point a gun at someone's head, much less pull that trigger. Therefore, you must find Hayden Duran liable for the actions of Jessie Duran.
Good job, guys.
She had me for my closing for 6:45.
Oh my god, I didn't start timing until 2:30.
Is that why you look so confused?
That's why I was giving you so much time on the bottle. I was like,
She had a full 2 minutes on her phone.
I didn't.
Yeah.
You should have told me that.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, I didn't want to say it
Sorry.
and mess you up and say like,
Okay, you got 30 seconds.
yeah, no, I was just looking at my mom. I was like, my sorry.
Let's go to Nashville.
So you don't get 30 seconds.
You can be there by tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, okay. All right.
I'll see it. I'll blame it.
No, yeah, no,
That's why I didn't say anything. I was like,
Yes.
I know.
you're right back on.
You're so little joy in life now.
I know. I was just like,
That's what I was. They could have been better though. Like some of my responses.
There were a couple that I just didn't because I was afraid because I would take away all of their direct and then we wouldn't get to see like how.
Oh yeah. You cannot sustain a live daily addiction in a stride. You just can't. You gotta have it someone.
But I
You don't need to keep up all the time.
The relevance one talking about that I think is crazy.
No, you did perfectly fine. You were talking, you were thinking about something you were talking.
Yeah, once I hear my mind races,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Fell over a couple of words, but like what you were saying was absolutely true.
What did you? Am I opening come across okay?
It is good.
Okay.
I'm gonna watch around upstairs.
Me too. I'm gonna be over there in a second actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch around upstairs.
Something kind of early on.
Okay.
One of my first instances but I just started earlier on. Shit ton.
That's why I'm taking some bigger.
What were your answers?
Yeah, you guys did awesome.
I really like that you referenced it, but just the language could be better. She came before you, she only said her once.
Team Cocaine, I want a group hug really badly.
I hate
Jeff,
you
come on.
Oh, and then buy someone like you know potatoes.
Peter,
I was like,
Peter, come here.
that's
Come here.
Okay, 1 second.
Oh boy, good boy.
then I was like,
Guys, I apologize. I just
This is their last time. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's not okay. As long as it's not just going to the
consider that we never, ran each other. That is. First, what is your advice?
One very impressive. That question I pushed so hard was because I do rise up in his closing.
That and like just pointing out the fact that what he relied upon is not reason.
The way you phrased it, I don't feel like I had to based on that was based on that it said. So he was going to me on it. I think it was important enough to push it that much.
Okay.
It's like impossible.
I got really pissed off at I heard it and I was like,
Did you score us?
I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you.
I have like I've gotten good responses on it.
You're trying on it. He was like, say,
oh my gosh. Well, thank you for judging. I appreciate it.
I'm going to check my notes for swear words or anything of the sort.
Okay.
Thank you, Krista.
You're right.
We appreciate it.
I grabbed my laptop. Hello. I have one more document I found. Monique, here's another one. It's the note. It was up there at the bench.
No.
You're too nice to be that mean on Crossman.
Oh, I wasn't even bringing full heat. He was really good though.
I'm very excited to see you bring